So, to be facetious, there I was asking myself, what if? What if those judgmental, boring Christians driving cars nicer than mine with their cliche music and seemingly impossible claims about miracles and resurrections, who guilt you into leaving the house every Sunday morning when it's 10 below zero to be overwhelmed by 11 dozen different perfumes and ideas written by other boring people thousands of years ago, what if those people were right about everything? That's the type of question critical thinkers ask, by the way. They ask, what if the people I disagree with are indeed correct? Now, wouldn't that just be the perfect punchline to this joke of a life, I thought bitterly. I didn't want them to be right, but I was overlooking an important fact. If they were right, there was hope. In reality, I was deeply committed to doubt and hopelessness, in a way that I wasn't even aware of. Looking back, it feels like a chemical dependency I didn't know I had. I was intoxicated by the undeniable misery of life instead of being motivated by solutions. I was complaining instead of doing. Then I realized, whether fact or fiction, that Jesus is the ultimate story of redemption, and redemption was the thing I needed most. When you're thirsty, you drink water. I believe in doing what makes sense. If you want what someone has, follow them. Do what they do. Whether fact or fiction, Jesus lives out an archetypal story. The claim is that he was a perfect man who died to fix all human error, thus redeeming human error. That's even more interesting than the things Han Solo and Luke Skywalker accomplished. Yet for some reason, I always seemed content to console myself with stories I knew full well were fiction. I was content to nurture myself with music, movies, and games. I have always noticed that people's interests affect their personality. Books, movies, and music seem to affect the way people talk and dress. We call this subculture. We become a product of our environment. We embody and exude the ideas and values we encounter. Was I putting the pieces together? I chose to encounter better information. I wanted to exude strength and hope. I was asking this question of what if during a time of particular despair in my life, an existential rock bottom. I was miserable at my job, working 12-hour overnights, all the while contemplating the universe and listening to a lot of different music. I was plagued by various resentments and dissatisfactions. I was desperately angry at the world. And in one distinct moment, I remember thinking to myself, what if those judgmental, self-righteous Christians are right? Of course, now I see the hypocrisy. I was completely willing to judge religious people as judgmental. The difference is that a practicing Christian would be well aware of the consequences of making such harsh judgments. Christians are commanded not to judge harshly. I myself wasn't even trying. Matthew 7 says, do not judge others so that God will not judge you, for God will judge you in the same way you judge others, and he will apply to you the same rules you apply to others. Today's English version. But taking a step back, why didn't I want the Christians to be right? Didn't I want there to be redemption for all humanity? This is why I ask the question, how do I believe, instead of why do I believe? Because for most of my life, I was under the impression that belief wasn't my conscious choice. If I'm not given a good reason to believe, I'm not able to believe, I would say. Well, my desperation for relief became an outstanding reason for belief. Without evidence, I can't believe, I would say. Well, we can choose the evidence we encounter and consume. Looking back is embarrassing because now it seems so obvious. You build your thinking with the information you go looking for. I wasn't looking for solutions. I was looking for entertainment and then blaming God because the evidence for his existence hadn't been handed to me instantly on a silver platter. My original idea about belief has changed shape. I don't necessarily choose what I believe, but I do certainly choose what information I encounter. I choose my music, my work, my hobbies, and who I'm surrounded by. These choices determine the information I am receiving. This information will serve as evidence for what the world is, thus determining my belief about the world and therefore determining my behavior and my quality of life. The question is then not why, but how, and to answer, how do I believe in God, or perhaps even how could I believe in God? 1. Sufficient suffering. Desperation led me to find the willingness to grow. 2. Sufficient observation. Paying attention to what works. What proof is in what pudding? 3. Free will. Choosing information that supports the best case scenario, a redeemer, and ultimate redemption. 4. Free will. Sacrificing my pride, my time, and my indulgence for something better. also called withheld gratification, an old and profoundly effective strategy for improving a person's quality of life. And 5, free will, humbly attempting prayer for comprehension, asking God to increase my understanding, asking God for wisdom both broad and specific, the highest form of open-mindedness. Asking that question had been terrifying for me. I didn't want Christians to be right because they bothered me so much. But why? Why did they bother me so much? Something felt off about it. I knew that I had room for error. I knew deep down. There was a quiet nagging of intuition alongside the persistent screams of my resentments. I knew that I was proud of my pain and that I felt justified. I knew full well that I was sick, but I was addicted to my sickness. Being right was more important to me than being happy. Being right was more important to me than forgiveness. And I knew that was wrong. But when thinking about Christianity, I had what they called resentment prior to investigation. I was obsessed with art and creativity. But again, ironically, I had no interest in the Creator. Christianity seemed so plain, boring. I didn't realize that the Scripture offers a perfect explanation for my problem of dissatisfaction. The world and its seemingly infinite but evasive pleasures is not a long-term solution for our pain. Nothing lasts. It seems that reality is structured specifically to make that point, loud and clear. Life is perhaps an opportunity to learn that lesson specifically, that we need to rely on the ultimate power of reality. I realized long ago that anything can happen to me, in this life or in any other. So I was afraid of life, whether there was a God or not. Perhaps I was afraid equally of life and death. I know now that blind fear does not produce useful results, and results are what matter. So what produces good results? What remedies the pain of living? Believe me when I say that I went to an abundance of creative measures to remedy my pain. The only thing that made things better was one decision in particular, the humble maneuver of surrender, which was an abrupt choice and a gradual process for me. I admitted that I didn't have all the answers. I surrendered control and adopted trust. One last terrifying question. Why does it feel good to feel bad? Maybe you don't believe it does. Maybe you don't believe people become addicted to their sadness. Maybe you don't believe people can choose their emotions. Well, if that's the case, one thing remains undeniable. Even if you can't control your emotions whatsoever, you can control your conduct, your behavior. You can control which ideas go into your head during times of research, recreation, and relaxation. That information will determine your worldview whether you like it or not. And it's one thing that the religious and secularists both agree on, that you will always be a product of your environment. How could I believe in God? Because love and redemption are the best concepts, the best environment for my mind. So I choose to build that environment for myself.